So I am going to make this one on the original, this is the original Nifty Knitter 48 peg loom. And you cannot get these anymore, but you can buy one that's exactly the same gauge, meaning how far apart the pegs are, from CinDWood looms. And I'll put all those in the description at the bottom. So today I'm going to use Bernat Softee Chunky. It's really nice yarn, and it is called Seagreen. So Seagreen, Bernat Chunky. I think it's easy to see on camera and it will work out well. So the first thing you want to do is cast on, and you can cast on whichever way you like. I like to do the same cast on every time, and I also go counterclockwise, and I know everybody doesn't go counterclockwise. I use my anchor peg because I don't particularly like having the knot at the bottom, so I prefer to use the anchor peg. And I wind these skeins into these nice little cakes, and if you look at my other videos on my YouTube channel, you will see me using my yarn winder, and a yarn winder to me is a must-have. Keeps your yarn from getting tangled. So when I cast on, and this is going to be a more advanced pattern, so this is not really a beginner. If you want to learn cast-ons, you can go to Good Knit Kiss's website. You can go to Loom a Hat, and they can teach you how to cast on. So the way I cast on is I just wrap and pull over this peg, and then I'm going to tighten my working yarn. And then I'm going to wrap this peg twice, and I'm going to knit it over and then tighten it up. So I'm going to do that all the way around my loom. Okay, so get your cast on done and meet me back here. Once we have our cast on done, we end up at our last peg. And you can do this on any loom. So I'm going to show you, because this is a good learning experience. This is the needle knit pattern, okay? And she does a cast on of 86. Now, of course, we're doing 48. So the very first round says knit 1 round 1 by 1 ribbing. Knit 1 by 1 twisted ribbing for 3.5 inches. So I'm going to ignore the 1 by 1 regular, and I'm going right to the knit 1 by 1 twisted ribbing for 3.5 inches. So what is twisted ribbing? So when we knit on a loom, this is the loom version, we're going to use the E-rep knit stitch and the twisted purl stitch. Now you can use a regular purl. It will just, the contraction or the stretchiness will be a little bit different. So since she's using a twisted rib, I'm going to do the same. So what a lot of people who, if you're just learning how to loom knit, you learn how to do the E-wrap. This is not a traditional knit stitch. This is, in knitting, if you were knitting on needles, it would be called a twisted knit or knit through the back loop, which is usually listed, I don't know if it's on this one, KTBL, which means knit through the back loop. So an E-wrap, there are 4 different kinds of knit stitches. I'm not going to go over all of them today, but if you go to Denise's YouTube channel at Loom a Hat, she will show you how to do all 4 knit stitches. So for this, we're going to E-wrap the first peg, and then we're going to purl. And once again, if you need a tutorial on how to purl, you can go to Loom a Hat and learn how to purl. This tutorial is based on people that are relatively, at least intermediate loomers. So you're going to reach under here, grab your purl stitch. Now, ordinarily, when you purl, you're going to lift this loop off and put it back on. But since we're doing a twisted purl stitch, we're going to twist it around before placing it back on the peg. If you are like me and you're going counterclockwise, you will twist it counterclockwise. If you're going clockwise, you will twist it clockwise. So you're twisting it the same way you're going around the loom. So let's do the next one. We're going to E-wrap, which goes back to front. Then we're going to purl. Okay. And then before we put it back on, we're just going to twist it and then tighten it up. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around the loom. E-wrap, pull through, twist it, or pull it off, I'm sorry. Pull it off, going to twist it counterclockwise before placing it back on the loom and tighten up my stitch. So this is called a 1-by-1 ribbing, and all that means is 1 knit, 1 purl, 1 knit, 1 purl. It just depends on whether you're doing an E-wrap and a regular purl or an E-wrap and a twisted purl. So finish doing your 1-by-1 ribbing and meet me back. Okay, once you get back to the beginning and you've purled all your stitches, all you're going to do is go back around and lift off all the ones you left E-wrapped, all your knit stitches, and just lift all of them over, okay? So just gonna lift all of your E-wraps over and meet me back at the beginning. Okay, once you finish lifting off all your E-wraps, you're going to continue with this twisted rib E-wrap, 1, twisted purl the next, E-wrap 1, twisted purl, E-wrap, twisted purl, until you get a length of 3.5 inches. So you'll have to use your tape measure and get 3.5 inches. So that's what we want to do, because we're going to fold the brim over and connect the edge. So when I was telling you about the E-wrap being the actual twisted knit stitch, if you were to knit on needles, which I just did this on straight needles, your regular knit stitch looks like this, okay? When you do it on the loom, the traditional knit stitch looks like this at the top, and this is your E-wrap. So do you see the difference in how much bigger an E-wrap is? And that's why an E-wrap is actually a twisted knit stitch. This is a traditional knit stitch done on the loom, which I will go over in the next round. This is what we call a U-wrap, and it's even tighter. So a U-wrap is really tight. The traditional knit stitch on the loom is a little closer to regular, but this still ends up being a little bit smaller, and that just has to do with how far apart the pegs are. These needles are equivalent to this gauge loom, so that's a whole other video. But anyway, finish your 3.5 inches and meet me back here. So once you have finished your twisted rib stitch, and it measures about 3.5 inches, I think that's what I've got here, about 3.5 inches, maybe a little more. This is a number 6 bulky yarn, and with this yarn, I believe this was 16 rows. You may have more or less rows depending on what weight yarn you were using. So our next instruction in our pattern is going to be to knit 1-by-1 ribbing using the E-wrap knit stitch and twisted purl, fold brim under, connect cast on edge to your pegs. So this is just like any other hat. If you've done the regular fold over brim, I'm going to find, this is my starting, where I started. See, this is my slip knot, my starting peg. So I'm going to put that one on my starting peg. And I always wait to do my yarn when I come back around. And then I'm just going to put each cast on back on the pegs. Okay, so you should have a loop for each peg where you can just put the original cast on edge loops back on. So do that all the way around and meet me back here. Okay, I finished putting all of the cast on edge loops back on the pegs. This is my tail, and you can just put it underneath these pegs. I actually need to pull it out. Okay, so you can just put it inside here. Pull up a few loops, and you're just going to lay it down inside the brim. Okay. And then put your loops back on your pegs. You can do that actually before you put all your loops back on. I kind of did that backwards. Okay, so now my cast on loops are all back on, and now all you'll do is lift the bottom loops over the top. Okay, so you're just connecting the brim edge. So just go all the way around and lift the bottom loop over the top. Okay, meet me back here.